Thank you very much, President, Lord Provost, ladies and gentlemen. Well, can I say thank you very much for inviting me to be here today for this, which is a really significant event, not just here in Edinburgh, but the whole of the UK, and for globally, for those involved with disabilities of all sorts. And I don't think any of you here would be aware of the fact that the last time, and the only other time this event has been held in the United Kingdom, the Rehabilitation International World Congress. It was opened by my father, the Duke of Edinburgh, in 1956. So time moves on, and I think from that very much post-Second World War type of rehabilitation that everybody was focused on, and the beginning of the Paralympic Games at Stoke Mandeville in 1948, things have changed just a little bit. And I hope that Paralympic movement has actually had some impact on those changes. And as a member of the International Olympic Committee, I've certainly been hugely encouraged by the way in which the attendance and the interest in the Paralympic Games has grown. And I think particularly from Beijing and London, and most recently in Rio de Janeiro. But they have also changed in terms of the type of games, because those early games in Stoke Mandeville were very wheelchair, Paralympic spinal injury orientated. And now they've broadened the concept of the Paralympic Games quite dramatically. My own experience in the time in between that I suppose gives me some understanding of what you're attempting to do here. Started in the early days, funnily enough, with the Save the Children, working with rehabilitating children who'd suffered polio, creating not only the rehabilitation, but workshops to create their own calipers, created locally, through the Spinal Injuries Association, through the College of Occupational Therapists, through SENSE, which is the Deaf Blind Rubella Association, and other organisations like Home Farm Trust and Motor Neuron Disease Association. It covers quite a wide range of what is covered here in that term disability. And the changes that those organisations have seen over the years in the awareness and understanding of the general public, and also the huge impact that appropriate uses of technology have made to some groups in more than others. But the value to all those who get a diagnosis early, the value of mentors, of role models as motivators to inspire each individual to achieve something that they might have at that stage decided was they were no longer able to do. And it applies, that inspiration and motivation applies not just to them, but to their carers and to those who could employ them and work with them, because it is important for them too to have role models and mentors to make that transition successful and fulfill everybody's potential. And we know, as you all know, because you represent a very wide body of individual, that every person is affected differently, even if they have the same diagnosis, which makes rehabilitation the key, but to have general solutions a real challenge. And perhaps, though, there is an important indicator of a country's attitude in this rapidly changing world, but it is how well they equip and enable people with a range of disabilities to participate in not just daily activities, i.e. their ability to live independent lives, but activities within society and business. I mentioned sport already, and it is an important but it's not the only criteria in which our investment in human potential should be considered. It's employment also, which provides a major pathway to independence. And not just physically, but mentally gives that level of satisfaction that can make such a difference in people's lives. And this independence has been growing for many disabled people. Certainly, since my father spoke at this Congress 60 years ago, I don't think people could have begun to imagine the range of opportunities in employment that would be available. So every 4 years, about 1,000 people from more than 60 countries come together to identify and keep pace with the change, and then to try and reduce the barriers that still exist that do restrict opportunities and result in individuals still being marginalized and lacking that independence and the ability to actually have the choice and to be able to make those choices. We look at a wheelchair access as a kind of simple definition of how people judge accessibility, but it's not just about that. It's others recognizing, like with deaf people, recognize the issue and having the time, taking the time to realize that you can communicate better and give that little bit of time. And as I said, technology can overcome many of these barriers, but we need to help other people learn how to use that technology and to create better human interfaces. You need, for everybody else, has to have a bit more time, a bit more patience, have the vision to understand the differences, and a real understanding of what those diagnoses and conditions really means to individuals. And we still battle with a fear of the unknown and the fear of responsibility that often comes from employers in relation to how they employ people. Over the next 3 days, you're going to hear from many internationally renowned speakers, including many disabled professionals, on their views on the way forward. You will listen and you will exchange, at least I hope you're going to listen and exchange views, and maybe look at practical solutions which will help make a real difference for all disabled people, wherever they are in the world. I hope that you will leave Edinburgh having had the opportunity to enjoy some of what the city offers outside the Congress, but that you will also be able to take back much inspiration to help you in the roles that you fulfill in your own countries back home and with your own organizations, that you will feel enriched and invigorated to make more meaningful and lasting changes to promote the inclusion of disabled people. But above all of the organizations and statutory authorities, I think, must try and remain flexible enough so that people can be judged not by a named disability or their assumptions that come with those named disabilities, but by their abilities and their ability to fulfill their own potential in their own way. So thank you all for the efforts you have made over the last nearly 100 years. This is your 23rd Rehabilitation International World Congress, and I'm delighted to declare it open.